just asked me. I'm not in my comfort zone, to be honest with you, when I do something like this, you know. Well, when Katie asked me, I had to say yes, and I said, well, wait a minute. At one point, I got to roll out this nonprofit anyway. So we've got 2 videos today. I think you'll find them interesting. But thank you, Katie, the Chamber and the Marine Industry Association, Phil and team, for having what you guys do. I've watched this MIA with you guys and Phil at the helm, to be honest. Wow, you guys pulled it together.
So, Joe, we want to kind of talk about what you have done in your life. I mean, it's a crazy story. Sometimes I've told Joe, I'm like, how are you still here telling us these stories?
The short story is, I don't have one shot. But I grew up in the inner city of Boston. My father was in the military, in the Army, and got pretty well shot up in 2 different campaigns. We moved into the water when I was 12 because that wasn't a good place to live anymore. And the water just turned me on. There was a fellow there that had a boat rental, Hurley's boat rental, and us young kids, 13, 14, would clean and fix these 40 or 50 boats. So anyways, that turned me on to the ocean. So from learning how to hot wire a car at 12 years old to be getting into the ocean, that was kind of where we started. I went in the military, thought it was my time to keep the world safe. My father did. And I graduated out of high school. I was trying to get in the Navy SEALs UDT, but I had a broken nose I didn't know I had. I remember the fight well, but I didn't realize my nose was screwed up. So I ended up going for 1968 when I graduated out of high school, so I'm 73. I went to the Army base when my father was actually a night watchman. Now at this time in the Vietnam War, they're processing probably about 5,000 or 6,000 kids a day in the Boston Army base, big place for Vietnam. And that was when everyone had the draft numbers and all that. And so I wanted to go in the military, and I get to the Navy, and they says, all of us, half a dozen of us lined up in skivvies. What do you want to do, Farrell? You can, quartermaster, sonar, whatever. I said, I'll be a diver. He said, you can't. You got a deviated septum. I said, what's that? He said, it's a broken nose. I said, okay, well, fix it. And he said, no. I said, I dive now. He says, no, we don't do that. So I literally drove from the Boston Army base to the Customs building in Boston. On the 12th floor, the Coast Guard had a recruiting center. I went in there. I said, you guys in Vietnam? And he says, yeah. I said, you got divers? And he says, yeah. I said, okay, I'll sign up. He said, well, you have to be a high school graduate. Everyone was trying to avoid the Army, and here's my diploma. So I swore in that day. The next day, that afternoon, after I just swore in for 4 years, they says, okay, now you got to go to the Army base tomorrow for a physical. True story. So I'm like, oh shoot, I didn't want to tell them I just failed. I just left the Army base. So now I get a friend of mine, Chucky Holler, and his brother used to be a UDT instructor, SEAL instructor in Little Creek. And so Chucky, I said, you got to drive me in because I'm going to take 3 of these 24-hour contact capsules so I can get my sinuses clear and whatnot. And I couldn't even hardly stand up at that point. So anyways, I end up going back. He drives me in and go through a whole physical. I go through it because now I know what to look for. And I'm in the line. The Coast Guard guy says, okay, what do you want to do in Farrell? And I says, I'm going to be a diver in the Coast Guard. He says, no, the Coast Guard guy says, no, we don't have divers. Now, he's sitting beside the Navy guy that the day before just said I couldn't be a diver in the Navy. And so I says, you got divers in the Coast Guard? He says, no, we don't. I said, look, I just swore in yesterday, you got divers in the Coast Guard. He turns around and says, hey, Charlie, we got divers in the Coast Guard? The other Coast Guard guy, Charlie, says, yeah, we do. See, I told you. And now the Navy guy's looking at me, and he's like, he's connecting dots. He's probably already seen about 300 kids since I was there yesterday, the day before. So I said, I told you. And I said, Charlie, where are those divers at? He said, oh, they're on icebreakers. I said, icebreakers? So anyways, I ended up going in the military. Went to an engineman school, diesel engineman school. Became an engineer on the ship. Went to Navy dive school anyways. Became a diver trained by the Navy. And I did a couple years diving. I mean, like stupid cold diving. I mean, wetsuits. We were doing convoy runs to Thule, Greenland, early warning missile sites, and we'd have to blow a hole in the ice to get to the propellers. We'd come out with core temperatures with thermometers in our backsides at like 94 degrees in 16-minute dives, looking at the propellers. If you go with a single hose regulator, the saliva in your mouth froze the regulators open, so we could only use double hose. So after 2 years of that, I says, wait a minute, I gotta get back to the Vietnam idea. So anyways, I ended up going to Vietnam because I had a lot of friends over there. I was an advisor, an explosive advisor. So I went to all kinds of training and became offloading ammunition ships in Saigon River and Queen Yon off the coast. And it was amazing. It was great, good-hearted people. A lot of them were all volunteers like me. So here's me. I grew up in Boston. We dive on an icebreaker. In Vietnam, it's like a February. I'm like, wait a minute. I bet there's someplace warm where people like each other. True story. So I come back to a small lifeboat station in Situate, Mass. I was the engineering officer. I had like 2 months to burn off before I get out of the military. And I told the captain of the base, I said, look, I need to go somewhere warm. He said, look, take a guy's sailboat to Florida. He wants to take his boat down. He's too old to sail it himself. He really don't know how to do it. He says, you know about sailing? I said, sure, I know all about sailing. So I went to the library, got a book about sailing, you know? So I meet this old man. He's actually older than I was, around my age. I said, I got to fix that shroud, and that stay's not so good. And okay, so we left the Coast Guard station. I literally had the boat tied to the Coast Guard station in Situate, Mass for about 2 weeks. So that was going to be my apartment down there. So I came down here 50 years ago. I left Situate, Mass in a snow squall, November 3rd, the day I got out of the military. Came down here 50 years ago. $500 in my pocket, didn't know a soul, and never really looked back. So I've been blessed. I was running out of money. I had a set of dive tanks, a sea bag, $500, living on a sailboat. And they were looking for divers out of the Bahamas. You had to be ex-military diver. So I hitchhiked. In those days, you could hitchhike in 95 to West Palm Beach, High-Tech Weapons Range, Atlantic Undersea Test and Evaluation Center. I had taken a Boston Globe advertisement they had in Boston before I left, looking for divers to dive in the Caribbean. So that's not a bad fallback. So anyways, I hitchhiked up there, and they says, wow, when can we hire you? I said, no, how'd you get here? I said, I hitchhiked. They said, what? They drove me in a limousine back to the sailboat. And within 3 weeks, I'm jumping out of helicopters in Andros Island, Bahamas, recovering torpedoes. We have a big test range over there, and I can talk 45 years ago, probably. So anyways, we used to come in at 10 feet, 10 knots, and jump out of helicopters with bands. We recovered the Mark 48 torpedoes. They were top secret, but they were capable of carrying nuclear warheads. So we didn't want to lose many of those, or any of those. I did that for 4 years, and I said, okay. It's time for a change. You jump out of a helicopter at 5:30 in the morning, land on a shark, scare him as much as yourself, because the torpedoes had pingers, and they used to attract all the sharks in the tongue of the ocean. What would happen is the submarines, when the captain gets the keys to a nuclear submarine, he would have to go to war, subs would chase him, and he would chase subs. It's right here in the Bahamas, the tongue of the ocean, 6,000 foot of water. And then planes would drop torpedoes on the sub, he'd shoot surface vessels. It was quite an amazing thing. So we did all kinds of crazy stuff. I mean, like, we used to have to go to Pensacola every 4 months to get, some of the torpedoes were fueled with cyanide, so it was kind of hard diving there. We had to have a full face mask, full wetsuits, because if you got the cyanide on you, it wasn't too good. And we're always jumping in rough stuff, so you couldn't see. The cyanide was always the fuel was a red fuel dripping out of the torpedoes. So anyways, I got out of that in 4 years, and then I got a job, guys asked if I wanted to be an engineer, a diesel engineer on a tugboat. It was one of the largest tugs in the world back in 58 when it was built. It was 158 foot, single screw. And so I became the chief engineer. And after 2 years I learned all about the ship and they weren't making it. And after a couple of years, they wanted to spin the ship off. They said, will you stay with it in the Caribbean until we sell it? And I said, well, yeah, but I want to be able to use the ship if I can get some work for it. And I said, yeah, that's fine. You know all about the ship. And within 2 jobs, the second job, I said, can I buy the ship from the job? Salvage is you can make a lot of money, you can lose a lot of money. Within 2 weeks of me being down there with 3 men, they used to run with 18, I got 2 jobs, and they allowed me to buy the ship. So I got in the salvage business backwards. I had a 158-foot ship, and I was the chief engineer and the captain. A friend of mine gave me a sextant, so I got a book, How Do You Drive Sextants? And then we went from there. Then I met my lovely wife. It goes on and on. We really have come a long way, though. I mean, I'll tell you, it's been some tough times. We're number 1 in the world now with emergency response. I have teams all around the world, from Singapore to Cape Town to Gibraltar. I own a tugboat company with 4 tugboats in Gibraltar. Dutch Harbor, I keep 2 rescue ships. I rescue all the deadliest catch. I keep a plane just in Alaska for that. But there was times when Mary Beth would be at a couple of salvage guys in my house, and I'm down in some jungle river job, I remember, in Colombia. No money for credit cards. She goes to Publix, there's no money to get food. We didn't have cell phones in those days, so So you really went through some stuff, MB. I'll have to tell you. You're really, and you're still with me.
Yeah, 3 kids.
So that's the story of Resolve starting off and what you've been doing. But I think you have done some amazing projects. I mean, you say all over the world. I mean, #1 salvage in the world, and you're based, here in Fort Lauderdale. But you want to tell us a little bit about some of a little clip we're going to see here in a second, lead us into that?
And when I say #1, we're #1 in ship rescues with our teams. We're like number 1.5 in salvage. We're up against Smith, who's been around 200 years. The video will kind of outline a bunch of interesting jobs.
There's a little meaning to some of the music that's behind this video. You want to say that before we start the video?
Oh, I think I should, yeah. Let me go back to my wife, though.
It
I
leads
tell her I'd be
into
gone
it.
for 2 or 3 weeks. She knows that could be a month or 2. If I said a month or a month and a half, she could be 3 or 4 months. This is how it was. It was not good. It was not good. She got one call from one of my competitors one time. Joe's lost at sea. Tuggy was on. I was going to an oil tanker that blew in half to deal with the dead and all that, and my tug sinks. So now she gets a call from one of my competitors. Joe's lost at sea. Got 3 little kids at home. You're amazing, Mary Lynn. So what Katie's saying, there's a little song here. Someone was asking me what I wanted my legacy to be. A couple people over the years, and I'm like, I don't need a legacy. I know who I am. And then I heard this song, so you'll enjoy this song. I was telling Phil earlier, I go to church 7 days a week. You can't have what I have, live where I live, have a family like I have. All 3 of my children are having children, and they'll be within 2 years of age. Matter of fact, my son-in-law just found an asteroid off of California in 1,000 meters of water. He drives the Alvin submarine. They saw the meteorite go by, and they were diving 1,000 meters off of California. The NASA calls them out, hey, can you take a day off and look for that asteroid with your dives over there? And they're working with the Navy. And they said, sure. They went down, they found the darn asteroid. And they had seen the meteor go across the sky. So then he's got the 2 top scientists in the submarine with him, and they came right on it. They found it within 100 feet. Uncanny how we could find this thing. It's 1,000 meters wide. It's over half a mile. It's 33,270 feet. Is how deep he goes 6,000 meters with this thing. This guy's amazing. He's getting out of it now because he's got my grandson Finn. So then the scientist says, you want to name this asteroid? Sure, I'll call it Finn Forsman. So I have my grandson has an asteroid named after the bottom of the ocean off California. So that song you can relate to. I'm not trying to push religion, but it works great for me. Or I wouldn't be here.
This video that we're going to show you here just kind of highlights some of the projects that Resolve Marine has been doing over the last years, and we're going to lead right into it. watched that last night, and I still get blown away sometimes by the projects and the scale at which you've been working at and Resolve Marine and what you guys have been doing. It's incredible, and it's right here in our backyard. This, the organization is here. Besides Resolve Marine, you also have the Maritime Academy, which is doing some great training opportunities. I've actually brought the students at New River Middle School over to the facility, and it's really great for them to see the opportunities that we have that are being built here in the marine world and salvage what you're doing. If you didn't hear, there was a tanker that was brought in last night. So they were able to plug it into the video. It actually came right past Joe's house, so he got the video as you guys were helping bring it up. So anything about that one that happened last night?
Well, it was funny. I was here yesterday with Glenn Wilshire. He says, you got one of your ships is out there. We just rescued a ship before it landed on the Florida beach here. I said, no kidding. So I called my guys last night, and they said, yeah, you'll be coming by your house here shortly. So that was...
So he texted me and sent me the video, and then just so happened that they were able to plug it in before this morning's video. Yeah.
We didn't do the Costa Concordia. My salvage master that runs all of Africa and that, Nick Sloan, did it. My tugs towed it. We towed it from Giglio to Genoa. It's kind of a cute story on that. So Nick was telling me a story. They didn't open the safe and all that, so they waited till they got to Genoa. That's where I towed it to. The welders were in there, so okay, we'll go to the safe now, see what was in the safe. And when they opened the safe up, the welders had been cutting through the bottom deck, so went right in and got everything out of the safe. And by the way, one of my main guys, Frank Leckie, he's responsible for like so many of these jobs. So he'd be out in the field, and I could be building the company. Now we've got lots and teams all over the planet, but Frankie's been amazing. Victor, by the way, our film guy, put all this together. He's been filming stuff around the world for 10 years. We have so much video. We've got enough for probably 3 seasons of Discovery Channel video. High def, drones, some of the stuff I can show you now, disarming torpedoes and submarines that sunk, and now we've lifted them up. Things I can talk about probably now because they're a few years older. Discovery's wanted, but I didn't want to be Discovery, then the next program is Alone and Naked in the Woods. I'm not going there. You saw that battleship. I don't know if you noticed that battleship going down, the battleship Texas. We were called, we're doing the largest cruise ship in the world, broke the dry dock in Freeport, Bahamas. The Oasis of the Sea was in the dry dock. The dry dock could lift about 80,000 tons. It broke their rear into the dry dock. The ship sank. And I'm the emergency responder for Royal Caribbean and Celebrity. And we used to train them in bridge simulation, do it at fire school as well. But anyways, I ended up pulling the cruise ship out of there. And then I get the next contract. You got to remove the dry dock. Now it's a 1,000-foot dry dock. Could lift 80,000 tons. It's in Freeport, Bahamas. Same time, I get a call from the battleship Texas. Can you help us stabilize the battleship? What the battleship? What do you got? Dreadnought, built 1914. There's a museum over there. And so they had a 44 pump. So I sent Frankie over there and the team, and we put foam in it. And I said, well, when we get this thing stabilized, what are you going to do? Well, we got to get a dry dock for it. And I'm like, So we ended up raising the dry dock, cut the dry dock in half. And then when I sink a ship, I like to do the history of the ship. I sank an aircraft carrier. Some most ships on the planet for artificial reefs. And that's because I lost my own barge a year and a half later off Cape Canaveral. I was back out there with so many fish. I'm like, this is huge. So I've sunk everything around the world, but I've sunk the biggest one, the aircraft carrier. So I read the story of the aircraft carrier. Senator McCain flew off it. His father took command of the Vietnam War and specifically on it. And I took the porthole off and I gave it to Senator McCain on a big wood carving. I put it on him. He was like in tears. So now I'm reading about the battleship Texas. I'm like, okay, it was in Italy. It was given support for the first infantry. I think it was the first infantry one day I was in. It was in Africa. My father first landed in Africa. He was a machine gunner in the army. And then he lands in Italy. Battleship was in Italy too. My old man was there. He takes a bullet there. And then almost a year later, he makes Normandy invasion. My wife were over there at the cemetery. I called my brother up. I said, what was Dad wounded in Normandy? He says, a certain date. So I looked at all the guys from his division that were killed that day, and he was in Sherborne. So my old man took 2 more bullets in Sherborne. I'm looking at the battleship, and the battleship is now off Normandy. It takes 2 shells from Sherborne. So here's me. I got an extra half a dry dock, one section good. Here's a battleship that probably kept me and my dad alive. I wouldn't be here. I was born in 50. So I said, that battleship is going on that dry dock. So if you go on Battleship Texas, you're going to find the battleship is on a dry dock that I cut in half. It's in Texas now. They're dropping about 40, 50 million to repair it. So I've been threading the needle all the way. my great-grandmother wouldn't allow my grandmother to get on a Titanic. She was fleeing the black and tan army. The English were getting rid of the dealing with the Irish problem. She ended up coming on Lusitania, but her mother wouldn't let her get her on the Titanic. So the whole history of our life is like, whoa. So church is not a bad thing.
Okay, every time I talk to Joe, I hear another different story. One of the things I want to lead into now is where you're going now that you're passing the torch on to your family members to take on Resolve Marine a little bit more, and you're kind of stepping into some other philanthropic side that you've always been in. He's always been in it.
So my kids, I says, look, you guys really want to be in with this company? And we've been blessed. We haven't lost a man or woman. It's like incredible. We've never lost anybody at the level where we're at. It's just incredible. So anyways, they said, yeah, we're going to do it. So my son's taking over the CEO. Lana's running all the training center. And my son asked me, and I said, well, I got to teach you, show these kids what I got. I got 70 companies around the world. At a board meeting a few years ago, Joey says, Dad, you know how much money we made this year? I said, oh, yeah. He says, oh, I'm not sure you do. I said, okay. You know how much money you gave away this year? And I says, oh yeah, of course. He says, I'm not sure you know that much. A few minutes later, I'm like, okay, what did I give away? I gave away more than we made for profits. So that's why I was making a non-profit. So we'll see the video. I can no longer use Resolve as a piggy bank. It's my profit.
We're going to watch this quick video here of where you're going.
So this is going to give me something to do as I get old. What we want to do is raise some money now to go down and pick up 1 million pounds of plastic ghost nets down in the Pacific Gyre. My base in Dutch Harbor, I keep 2 rescue ships up there. Matter of fact, that airplane you saw, I had just spent about $500,000 rebuilding that engine. I had 500 hours on it, and I didn't sue anybody. A tribal chief wanted to have his last Christmas in his village, so we flew him in his bed with a nurse and a doctor, landed it, set him up in his house. My pilot's taken off with the nurse and the paramedic, not a doctor, paramedic, and the engine froze up. And the helicopter lands and says, guys, this was like water 5-7 days ago. This lake was water. That's how warm Alaska was and that was Christmas Eve, three years ago. We ended up picking the plane up, and about 5 months ago, Pratt & Whitney gave me a $1.5 million engine, brand new, installed it. He says, they're going to be good. They're going to be good to us. But we use that with a rented engine, a rented propeller. I ended up vaccinating 2,000 people, remote villages. We can land it on beaches up there in Alaska because the fish processing guys are coming back and they're giving the indigenous people COVID, and they couldn't get to these villages. So with our plane, everyone said leave it on the ice. Joe, the insurance company says you can't. Everyone was getting frostbite. It got so cold, everyone was getting frostbite. We were just going to change the engine out. We couldn't because it was minus 20, minus 30 Fahrenheit, no wind chill every day. It was unbelievable. Even taking the fuel off, that helicopter to go 60 miles, we had to make 2 fuel stops, and everyone was getting frostbite with that. And everyone said the plane was overinsured. I could have walked away with $500,000 more leaving. I said, no, nobody got hurt. St. Mary's on the tail of that thing. We get it going again.
I could sit and listen to all the stories all the time. And now you guys understand why I think sometimes I'm like, yeah, he's the blessing that he is here. He's thriving, still building the business, passing it on, doing more things in our community. And that's what it's all about.
As sea level rises, you've talked about submerging cargo holds down in and trying to stop the wave energy. Where are you with that project?
Oh, it's way simple, way simple. Even a guy like me can figure that out. Every time I have a ship be in the Arctic Circle of ground or the skeleton coast of Africa, the hardest thing is getting rid of the sand in the gravel. So I've designed, it's way simple, like you make concrete barges, all shapes, and you just float them in position, they're hollow, pin them to the seafloor, it breaks the waves. It's kind of like a speed bump offshore. And that's why I have St. Mary on the tail. If you notice, I have it, by the way, I have a little Honda Jet, and 3 years ago, I went through the trees coming from Nantucket on this project. St. Mary's on the tail. Trees were going through both engines, went through 1,000 pounds of fuel trying to get, and I'm not like the pilot of this one, I'm a pilot, but this thing is too fast. I'm in the back, I'm like, what's more important, Hail Marys or Our Fathers? I opted for 2 Hail Marys, 2 Our Fathers and 1 Hail Mary. That was how long I was in. I said, oh damn it, first Mary Beth, I love you, because I knew it wasn't going to work out. But I'm an optimistic guy. There was no time for the rosary, you know? So I'm an optimistic guy, I'm like, okay, well, the bright side, there's not going to be no fire because we burned 1,000 pounds of fuel trying to land 3 different runways, 3 different times. It was all wrong weather information they were giving us. So St. Mary's on the tail of that. That's why I have it to commute to do the erosion project. I've been working for about 16 years. The short story is we can make speed bumps. As a matter of fact, if you saw the crane barge, that was one of my crane barges offshore Commercial Beach this summer. We placed about 3,000 8-ton blocks offshore. Something like that, but we just make it real simple with the concrete and the speed bumps. So we'll get through the environmental side of it.
We have some companies that Joe has been talking to about some of these things that are doing some of this, that's helping to build the blue economy and take care of and use some of Joe's ideas. His knowledge and is just incredible. So that is very useful as we are helping these companies. Joe has experience and knowledge that we are going to leverage very much so.
The God keeps having a sense of humor to keep me around, yeah.
I just want to say thank you. By watching the presentation, the things that you've done are very inspiring.
I just say thank you. I thank you. Everyone I know who's got sick. Prayer works. I'll have to tell you. I could tell you stories. We don't have time. We don't have time. Matter of fact, on the website, I'm going to write some of these stories because they're worthwhile. I mean, I have one going in an oil tanker. We were lost at sea. She gets called. And I get everyone saying the prayers, rougher than hell. And all of a sudden, I see something. I swim out there. It's a piece of bamboo. And the helicopter's going by us. They couldn't find us. Right by us. We're 20 miles south of Santo Domingo. The wrong neighborhood to go swimming, by the way. With the boat. The boat sharks. They don't bump you down there. They just bite you first. So anyways, it was a piece of bamboo. I used it to make a flag, and that's how the helicopters found us. 15 years I have it. 6 months later, we're walking the beach right in beyond South Bimini. I've got a couple houses in South Bimini, and here's the bamboo. And she sees me stop. She says, you okay? And I says, yeah, you remember that time I told you I'll meet you in Bimini, but I have to deal with this oil tanker blowing out? She said, yeah, I think I remember when your competitor called me up and I have 3 kids at home, says you lost at sea. I think I remember that show. I said, there's the bamboo. She said, what do you mean? There's the bamboo. That's the bamboo. It was 14 foot long, about 14 foot, 5-inch diameter, had the same curve. So I used to take it home every 3 years. I'd varnish it up. I'd put it in my house in Bimini, and when I was there, I'd put it up, and I had the kids' little pirate flag on, put a little crucifix on the top. 15 years it's on my house. My son and his buddy Dan, he runs our London office now. They're over there. They haven't been over there for 2 years. I had left the flag up. My daughter Summer left the pole up. A dark cloud comes in. My son's looking at it with Dan. Bolt of lightning hits the roof, bounces up, and blows the bamboo to hundreds of pieces while my kid's looking at it. Wow. Isn't that crazy? I'll put these stories on missionresolve.org. I really will. You may have to donate to get to read them. Also, I have a osprey nest, perch. I have a live camera now. I just put it right on the corner of Port Everglades at that sandbar there, where the intercoastal meets. the inlet. I'm on that corner. So I put a perch out there for the osprey. There, I put a live camera on. So you'll find that on the missionresolve.org. By the way, we're probably the largest environmental companies in the world because we've saved tens of millions of barrels of oil from going in oceans of the world. Hundreds of thousands of tons of cargoes and hazardous cargoes are going in the ocean. And those nurdles are the worst. When they go in the ocean, they're terrible. Everybody eats them. All the animals eat them because they're all different colors and it just destroys them. So it's a real problem. We're trying to get you, IMO, the International Maritime Organization, to put these things in Kevlar bags when you ship them. Something, because when they break open so easily, it just destroys the neighborhood and wildlife.